All right, so you're going to notice in a couple of these videos coming up that my face is covered because while we were doing these, I had originally made it so that people on Facebook could watch along with us through StreamYard, but it ate up the bit rate and destroyed my end of it, and I look like a distorted mess. So for a decent little bit until we get through the what me and Mike call the Simone get your shit together arc, you're going to see just my part of the eye catch take up my spot. You're not going to have to look at my face anymore. I don't think it's that big of a loss, but eventually we'll come back. That's through episode... It's one of the ones in the early teens. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but yeah, you're just going to deal with that for a little bit. I'm sorry, but we did figure out the problem, and we got it fixed before all the major stuff happened. So sorry, guys, just have to deal with it for a little bit. See ya. Love y'all.
All right, we're finally in the 2-episode gap where the thing happened, but that is going to be the episode after this. So, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, we are at episode 7 called You're Gonna Do It. So more details of the Beastman Empire are revealed as Thimilif, one of the four divine generals of the Spiral King, arrives to support Viral's Enki with the massive mobile gunman fortress, the Dai Gunzun. Seizing the opportunity to land a great victory, Kamina and Simone pilot the Gurren Lagann against seemingly overwhelming odds. And I think this is the first time that we've seen a completely unhinged Kamina. Like most of the time in the previous episodes, you know, he's been cocky, overconfident, but as Yoko points out, either in this or in episode 8, there's always been a method to the madness. This is the first time that it's only been madness.
Yep. Getting themselves exploded just to get on the top deck because there was no other way to get up there. Yeah. But, so what I was going to say was about seeing people again. Cavalry finally starts arriving on their side versus the other way around.
When I saw that scene, I was thinking to myself, wait, they did this like 13 or 12 years before Endgame.
It makes me happy. It makes me happy. It's not many things where it's like they get the stragglers, but then there's not many. They're like, you might hear from them again, and then they're all just they're straight in there. And I'm gonna shut my mouth. It is so hard for me to not talk about other things, but go ahead.
Oh boy, this episode was a lot of action and a lot of great action.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I keep bringing up that this is like the first time we've seen Kamina unhinged, and I think the reason that works is because of Simone. This is where their relationship really comes to a head, and we're only in episode 7.
Yeah, it's the first time where it's always like there's always like a cool name with their attacks. This is the first time where when he named an attack, it was the most pissed off thing I've ever heard him say. the man on fire flaming chariot kick. I was like, that's a little bit more straightforward than what you've ever said with anything. It's always like combustion of manly souls. I'm like, you just dunked Viral right into the. Also, when we get to see him and Viral attack, and you get to learn interesting things about Viral, that he's again a thing about a villain that I like. They do almost every cliche, or I want to say plating point for everything that I always liked. You have a villain that has a honor code. They're normally not done well, But to me, Viral is still a douchebag that somehow has an honor code, and I believe it. It doesn't seem like a forced plot device.
Interesting.
It's like, yeah, I want to kick your ass, but it's in a way kind of like Goku, but not, to where Viral knows he can kill you, but he wants to wait till you're ready. And he doesn't want to just blat you when you have a more powerful weapon sitting beside you. It's more of a pride thing versus a fairness thing. He wants to be more proud that he kicked your ass when you're more powerful versus wanting a fair fight for you to be more powerful.
He's also extremely petty. Like one of the first things he says when they're reunited is, "Give me back my crown. Give me back my crown, you asshole."
It's so obsessive. That was the one thing where I'm like, how about you kick his ass because he tore part of your Gunman apart? You don't need that back. It's like, how about you just kill him and then you're no longer a problem? You're never just like, I need to kill you. No, I want my damn helmet back. I'm like, you're such a petulant child.
But that's what makes him such a fun antagonist. And I can only call him antagonist, not villain, because he's intimidating, sure, but he's not quite the level of what I'm imagining now in my head is the Spiral King.
The Spiral King is the baddest badass that ever badassed. Once you see him, he is one of the, like, you see these shows and then you're kind of like, all right, he's probably the bad guy because of how he's drawn. When you see how they draw the guy, I won't say his name, but when you see how they draw the Spiral King, you're like, okay, yeah, that's the final boss kind of guy. Yep, they drew him to look intimidating. Yep, that's him. And but yeah, like you said, you got to meet Timoth. And now this is a point where I kind of wanted to see where we're getting above where it was like, you just had a gunman, then you had Viral, and Viral is kind of like, here, now you know what I was trying to get at, where he's got his 4 generals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not you don't get to meet whatever. You eventually will meet all 4 of them. And they all have their own little specialties that make them different. And as you got to see, Timoth had the Daigunzen. There's some stuff about that is just plot device weirdness. But speaking of that, before I forget, I need to mention this because it is another one of those things that just shows why I appreciate what the show goes for so much. They're about to fight, and Yoko and everybody else is just pissed. Like you said, Kamina is unhinged, and they need to stop. And then all of a sudden, both of them are like, no, we're going to kill that thing. Simone, we're taking that thing down. And then they both just get super pissed. And then all of a sudden, the spiral energy starts whirling, and the leg fixes itself, and Simone goes, what the hell? It just repaired itself, and the reason is fighting spirit. And then the camera shuts back down. Just like, okay, that was. Don't worry about it. It doesn't need to make sense.
I'm surprised that's not a meme.
I'm surprised it's not either.
Because you think that would be everywhere.
You would think there is a lot of memes that get out of here. And here is I'm probably going to say this once an episode because I'm watching these a lot more now that I'm actually doing a review of it. There is one thing that I noticed in this episode that I've never noticed in my multiple other times watching it. The blonde black sibling, and I'm going to not even attempt to do it because I always screw their names up. I never realized that after Timoth comes through with the Daigunzen and he's looking at all of his targets, that out of all the 6 cameras, there is one camera in the bottom right that is fixated right on her breasts.
Oh, wow.
I never noticed that in all the other times I watched it. Just like, what is that? Is that Kina? Oh, yep, that's her. But one thing I wanted to ask, since technically you see them in the episode after this, it's not a spoiler or anything. Which one of the newer gunmen do you like the most?
Ooh, good question.
There is Keaton's, there is Dayaka's, the gunship looking one, the one with the kind of like the gorilla arms. There's the runner, and then there's Jurgun and Balinbos, which I cannot remember what the thing's called. But yeah, which one do you think you like? Well, out of the limited that we've seen, which one do you think you like the most, design-wise, anyway?
I think the gorilla arms is probably the funniest looking one.
It reminds me of like what what's his name? I can't think of the evil kid off Toy Story. The first one. Sid. It reminds me of, I've always thought it would be something that Sid would make with the toys because it's got like the weird deformed, like taped on limbs.
Yep.
I was like, that is totally something he would make.
That's not my favorite though. I think my favorite is either the gunship or Ketons.
Ketons. Oh man, that star it's so clearly that is a type of thing that they wanted, and that looks exactly like a Digimon. I can't remember. It's not called Starmon either. I have the thing in my head. I just can't think of what it is. But yeah, that'll be another Digimon screw up that I have. Anyway, there were other things to talk about in this. And I was wrong once again. I noticed this. I totally forgot, and it is slipping my mind more, that Yoko actually did use that pistol again. I swore in the last episode that was the only time she used it, but I was wrong. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? Oh, it's just before we talk about more serious things in this one. They pull the kind of thing with the combining thing with Liron. Liron is always good at stupid finisher punchlines where they go through the entire cast talking about how giant the Ty Gunson is. And then Liron's just, oh, it's making me blush.
Liron is the best.
He is, and I'm so glad Steve Bloom got the voice in. But anyway, I'm talking more than you are. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question. So we see the Dai Gunzan, and when it's first introduced, they mentioned that is the base, but something about that just doesn't seem quite right. That's not.
Go ahead.
That's they say that's the base, but we've only met one of the four generals. So is it like, do all four generals have like their own Dai Gunzan, and together that's the base?
No, they mentioned it kind of in the episode, but it's only like 2 seconds. I will tell you, it is a gunman, but it is not theirs. It's the quote unquote the capital. Okay. It's just that is the launch point for the gunmen that they have been fighting. So when they traced it back to its launch point, that is where their base for those gunmen were. So yeah, each one of them has their own little
Okay, yeah, that clears up a little bit.
Yeah, it's and all of that starts coming real hard, real fast after this episode. You only have, like I said, 1 or 2, and then you start seeing everybody, and I mean everybody real fast, because they start realizing that Team Gurren's a threat, and it just goes. But yeah, I have to ask, were you expecting to see something outside of the jokey bathhouse gunman, obviously, because I keep forgetting just how damn big that thing was. Were you expecting to see a gunman that massive this early?
Not necessarily. I mean, I should have guessed that after the bathhouse, yeah, things were gonna start getting escalated, but we're only in episode 8. Like we're not even in like the double digits yet.
Nope. And it's just gonna, like I keep saying, it's gonna keep getting stupider. It mellows out sometimes, but it still spikes. But yeah, that is and is very much kind of like a Team Rocket squad of generals you'll start to fighting out. They all have their own distinct anime, like these are the 4 personalities most anime villains have, but they have their own flair to them, which is what I appreciate. They take the very simplistic stuff of what you like. Like I said, this is a parody show, so that you're taking the main subjects of what you have in a lot of these animes and doing their own little twist on it, but you always know, okay, that's what they were going for. And Tim Elf was the most basic, I'm an evil guy, but I'm slightly more important than all the evil people you've been fighting up until this point. And you get to see him on screen for this episode, the next one. So I think he's had a collective 10 minutes of screen time.
About, yeah.
But yeah, The problem with these two episodes, and I'm going to try and keep my thoughts connected because I'll start talking about the other episode when I'm really talking about this one, because they're basically the same episode, just split in half, but they don't call it part 1 and part 2 because they don't show you the title of episode 8 until the end of episode 8. I think that's the only episode that they do that with in the show. I believe. Don't quote me, but I believe.
Well, I think so. I even noticed that when episode 8 was starting. Like I'm like, wait, shouldn't we have seen the title by now? And then and then like, yeah, it once like a few minutes went by, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, because you see the eye catches, and then you're like, you should have saw the title by now. But anyway, and that's another weird thing. Like I've said, if you look at the episode titles on Netflix, they are inaccurate. And we'll get to that when we get to there, but they're either a few words added on, or it's literally a different thing. And I don't know if that's to hide spoilers, but the description is in the episode, even though it's a different title, is still a giant spoiler. But anyway, this episode stops. Man, I'm sure hard to think, because if you just watch both of them back to back to the same freaking episode, it stops basically right before they're going to attack, and they have the big game plan and everything. But anyway, for this episode, since we basically talked about everything, it was just the fight and all that. What would you have done differently? I know in the next episode, you're probably going to have more to say on this, but as far as this one goes.
Honestly, for what this was, which was literally just a big ass action scene, but also some important plot details, I honestly wouldn't change anything. This is a very important episode, but also just on a pure visceral level, it's just so awesome. Mm-hmm. Like this is what you love about either Gainax or Studio Trigger, because like I said, this is basically proto Trigger.
Mm-hmm. They figure out what their bread and butter is very quickly, and then they go to it. And like I said, we start going on. They literally ran out of money animating the show. And the further the show goes on, you get to see why. Like I said, when they're shooting the final episode, they openly said they almost went broke if they would have made another episode. But yeah, that was basically for this one. If we miss something, we're probably going to end up accidentally mentioning it in the next episode because, like I said, these two are very closely connected. They're only, like, I want to say in their time, a couple of minutes apart. Or like a day, if you count the night's sleep. Like
probably,
day,
yeah.
I should say. But yeah, anyway, Mike, where can everybody reach you?
You guys can find me at Twitter and Instagram at Captain K482. Check out all my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK482. Find me in all the various Facebook groups at my name. And check out Renegade Pop Culture, where you'll find this series and all my other podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those. And check out renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we.
Yes, and we are going to be recording tomorrow a podcast for the review of The Boys, plus a couple other things, and that's going to date this one real hard, considering this is going to start getting further out because of how we record these in batches. But either way, that I'm looking quite forward to because I did not start watching The Boys until last week, and it's really good. I cannot wait to talk about The Boys once you finish. Yeah, and I can't mention it either. And I've heard a lot of good things about Anthony Starr's performance in the last two episodes. I'm about halfway through the second to last one. And I can't think of the actor's name. And I will mention this again when we get on the podcast, or remind me if I don't. The actor that plays Victor in Umbrella Academy. Can't think of the guy's name. But he has been cast to play Albert Wesker in the Resident Evil reboot. I tell you right now, I'm sure he will do great. He's a good actor. But if I could have my way, Anthony Starr would be Albert Wesker and not him.
Ooh. I like the idea of seeing more of Anthony Starr.
Because if you go watch the cutscenes and the later what I want to say, Resident Evil 4 and on Albert Wesker, especially Resident Evil 5 Albert Wesker, and tell me you do not see Anthony Starr like to a T. Like slick the haircut he's got as Homelander and put him in a black trench coat, and you have Albert Wesker. But anyway, we'll be talking about that if you want to look at it. It's for our new podcast, Capes. I think it'll be episode 2.
Yeah, not counting interviews, because Keona's done a couple of those.
Okay, so this might be. Oh yeah, and then we didn't technically count the X-Men movies as one, so this might actually be episode 1.
Actually, episode 1 was the second half of DC Fandom.
That's right. Okay, it is 2. All right, there we go. But yeah, you can find me at Twitch at Organoid0 and everything. And like I said, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow, I want to start getting some interactive gaming stuff going with everybody from RPC as well, because I think that'd be a lot of fun. So we will see you guys next time. Spin on. I love you, and we'll talk to you later.